Hello and welcome to the Boban Marjanovic episode of the Hoop Theory Podcast, aka episode 51. My name is Logan Wortman, and as always, I am joined by my elegant co-host, Jacob Roth. Jacob, how goes it?
I am doing fantastic. It's going to be a great one.
How do you feel about the John Wick 3 star, Boban Marjanovic, being our episode muse today?
That was exciting. I didn't really think it would be right, but it was. Like, we looked and, that was pretty much him. In terms of, like, in our headcanon, the most important person to ever play in the NBA, and we're 51.
Yeah,
for sure him.
He's literally the only person I could think of. And when we looked up the list, that made sense. I couldn't think of any of the other guys. So not a lot, honestly. Not as many as you would think.
Ryan Arcidiacono, but.
Yeah, Ryan Arcidiacono. He would be on the short list for sure of guys. But speaking of short lists, we're going to try to narrow down a pretty short list here today for you guys. And that is our list of the top 10 best players in the world at the sport of basketball, namely in the NBA, which is basically the same thing as the sentence I just said. You know, not to go back to our many Noah Lyles conversations that we've had so far. But
we've only done two, haven't we?
Yeah, two on episodes, two on the air in the recording. But it feels like a lot for me because I've edited and put together shorts of those argued with people in comment sections.
Been fighting for your life, yeah.
Yeah, so it's been a good time.
Shout out to my barber for messing my beard up. Sorry.
Jeez.
It's okay.
You need to find a new barber.
I think I did already.
You think you did?
No, I'm like, I need to double check, but I'm not going to go get my hair cut soon.
Yeah.
Because I get it cut every a month and a half, 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
So next time I will try somebody new, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I am ready to go. We got a list. And there was a bit of a contention before the recording started on how are we going to approach this list?
One of our biggest fights we've ever had. No,
literally. I almost drove to Omaha fisticuffs to decide. But it was more so usually a list you want it to end with the exciting stuff, and that's almost always number one.
Yeah.
But in my brain, I was like, well, the top just a set of names, it's not really a debate.
I would say there is debate, but it's less contentious than
8, 9, and 10 in this top 10 list. There's 15, less than 15. There's 10 acceptable names for those three spots where I would listen to your argument without being like,
on my screen of notes that I'm looking at right now, I literally have 14 players listed out.
And I have 13.
Yeah.
Because I had to retype my notes up quick because I did not save it. Or apparently. I can't find it. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So the list I promised in the last episode of having a beginning of the year, end of the year, those lists got kind of merged because I did this one off the top of my head. So anyway, Logan, do we want to pivot, or are we going to stick with the going one first?
We can start with one.
Okay.
I agree with you that it's more anticlimactic if we start at 10 and go to 1.
Just because there's not an easy 10, it's a harder bottom of the list.
Yeah.
But I feel like 1, you open it up, but I feel like it's not really a debate by anybody.
I want to hear you say it.
I think it's the Sombor native.
Okay, awesome.
Nikola Jokic. I'm pretty because I thought about it because there was a couple other people, but I'm like, okay. If I were to be building an NBA team right now, I feel like he's the guy I want.
Mm-hmm.
And what he did on the court in the finals, in the playoffs, hadn't been done before. And if it had been done once, and then he just averaged that over the playoffs.
Yes.
So I feel like and then also in terms of the whole building a team, looking at that, not that that's not the angle we're taking. Because I feel like the 10 guys you would want to build a team, I would not want all of these guys necessarily that I have on my top 10. I would want a lot of them, but not all of them. But like, he just what he does. He makes everyone else better around him. So if you take the upgrade that he gives everyone else and add that to his stock alone, he's like weighing out the top of the list.
I agree. The one thing I will say is it seems like everybody has jumped onto this bandwagon, if you want to call it that. Just, I mean, after this finals, which makes sense because we just saw him do it, and so that's vaulted him into like this new atmosphere. But, and I can't even take full credit for this because I don't think I ever really said it in the past. Like when ranking players, I always used to put Giannis 1 because that was like the consensus, like a year ago or 2 years ago. But if you would, I believe 100% that if you would have asked me back then, like, when it comes down to it, like if I had to choose one player between Jokic and Giannis, like who would I choose, to be on the Nuggets type of thing? Like I honestly think I would have chose Jokic. So is that the same thing as putting him as number one? I don't know.
I think you already have emotional connection to him.
No, but I'm saying, yeah, I mean, that could be part of it, but I just feel like...
No, because until this year, I still take Giannis. Not just postseason, this season.
Yeah. I don't blame you for doing that. No, I'm just saying that I disagree.
Yeah.
I feel like this entire time I feel safe when the ball is in Jokic's hands. Do you know what I mean?
It's the opposite feeling I get when Nebraska ball legend. Oh, I just blanked on his name. CJ Wilcher has the basketball. The way you feel when Jokic has the basketball is the opposite how I feel when CJ Wilcher has the basketball.
Yeah, that's
going to be a thing that almost no one gets. But if you know, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, but so Jokic, I just feel like he's the only person. It's the only thing in this world that gives me that kind of feeling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That when he has the ball and it's in a late game situation, the only thing that I'm worried about is the refs making the right call or, things that are outside of his control. Because everything within his control, I'm not worried about at all. And yeah, so at the end of the day, I feel like I would just tend to default to that safety blanket as opposed to, all the other stuff that Giannis provides, which I mean is a lot. I don't think there's a wrong choice between the two of them. I'm kind of spoiling who my number 2 is, but that would be him, Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yep. That's also my 2.
1, 2. I think that's the clear top 2 for me. Like if we were to do this in tiers, that's tier 1.
Yes, I 100% agree that's like, yes. It's like if you were to break down this top 10 list even further, you've got 2, and then I say you have
3 more for me at least. There's 3 more after that 2 that are in a little group.
I've got 4.
4.
But I have a feeling that the fourth one
might be
I have in my tier.
I know who it is.
Yeah, I feel like everybody probably does. But yeah.
Yeah. So moving on to 3 then. Do you want to alternate this? You want to go 3?
I'll give a little bit more love to Giannis. Like obviously, all of the things that he does in like the playoffs. Like that was a weird thing that he was hurt for. A good chunk of it. Not to just take away anything the Heat did, but like putting the Bucks loss on Giannis's shoulders, saying he should be lower because, he looked bad in the playoffs. That's just a dumb argument. Giannis is 2 just because of everything he does. He's like, that's why him and Jokic is a conversation. I still take Jokic 9 times out of 10. But looking at my 3, this is where I started to struggle with the order.
Yeah, same.
So this is when the order kind of was tough because I like, okay.
This next 3, I put in every single order that is possible. I've jumbled them around in every single position.
So I put Steph at 3.
Same.
Because I was like, this might not be a great. It doesn't matter if we don't agree, but I just put Steph at 3 because I was like, okay, it's just this year. I just felt
like going into this season.
It's just going to be going into this. It's not like, oh, from the what's that?
It's not predicting what will happen this season. It's saying
it's
like this is the order going in, and things can. That's what we'll kind of get into is what things can happen that we can foresee somebody jumping, in positions pretty easily.
Yeah.
But going in, I feel like this just needs to be the order. That's kind of why I put Steph here at 3 as opposed to somebody else. Because that's who I had there to begin with when I first drafted out this list, is somebody else. And I guess, just to give some more love or some more like depth of conversation into our picks so far, like Jokic, he's giving you like just this unbelievable ability to play make from like the center of the court. He's basically like, think of him as like the sun. And all the other pieces on the court are like the planets orbiting around that sun.
Except like not in the black hole way that Luka and Trae Young are. Like in the one that gives life to the planets and doesn't just absorb all of the energy in the surrounding area.
Yeah, exactly.
Because heliocentric is like an expression already, and that's a great, but like not in the negative sense. Or like that's the only reason Luka isn't better. Mm-hmm. And maybe higher on the list is because he is so like, I think Trae Young's the most like to the point where he's a black hole, not even a sun. Just like I am devoid of happiness, but I do things.
Yeah, it's hard to call somebody who averages like 10 assists a game a black hole, but like I understand that point. Like, and I don't disagree with it because it's kind of like Harden on the Rockets sort of thing, where it's every single move, every single decision is like orchestrated by that player. And so that's how you rack up. Just because you're getting a lot of assists doesn't mean that you are like a great facilitator or, floor general necessarily, because
facilitation via production, because the other team's like, oh, send to it him. And you just have the like
pick and roll every time
to be like, oh, I should pass this to the wide open PJ Tucker or Eric Gordon standing in the corner because his guy came and doubled me.
Yeah.
In the James Harden situation.
So that's the third option. Like I was just thinking from it, like the most basic, like 2-option scenario.
Oh.
And like with Harden's pick and roll, it's always, if you don't play, like either you give Harden less attention and allow him to score in the pick and roll, or if you shade over to him more, then he has Capella on the lob. And then I guess if somehow you have unbelievable pick and roll defense where both of those are, because maybe you bring a third defender over to try to stop that from happening, then you leave somebody open in the corner. And that, James Harden is a very capable, very talented passer. I'm not taking anything away from him as one of the most skilled passers in the world. But the thing is, he's not like a Jokic where he's like, he makes all of his teammates better necessarily. It's like all of the other teammates are just kind of stationary pieces, and
around
the game,
him.
The game is all based on him. It's like I'm scoring or I'm making this option read, type thing, and not necessarily like setting up your teammates into different positions, like dynamically to give them different opportunities, like the way that Jokic and Murray play off of each other.
Yep.
So yeah. That's, I guess, what I'll say about Jokic and the heliocentric thing. That's a conversation that started coming up a lot more in this playoffs of like people trying to describe Jokic. Like I heard that come up of somebody being like, it makes more sense. We use this word heliocentrism to describe like, basically as to describe LeBron ball and Harden ball and Luka ball and Trae ball. But it makes, honestly, if you think about it, it would make more sense to describe what Jokic does as heliocentrism, because it's like things are orbiting and moving around him in a way, instead of it just being like
focused on a star.
Yeah, that type of thing. So, I mean, they both work. It's a kind of a mixed metaphor, but
that's how good Jokic is he took this thing that people had used for forever and then just said, well, I do it better but totally different. So change the definition.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then Giannis is at 2. He's definitely the best defender.
Yeah.
At least in this top 5 for sure. He's the best defender here. And, offense, very, very valuable on that end as well. Provides a ton of rim pressure. He's probably got the highest motor of anybody here on this list. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about Giannis other than he's the Greek freak. Runs the floor like a deer, like the mascot of his team. And he's just a special, special player. And he's honestly also really unselfish, really just great leader, great teammate, just like Jokic. So and just like Steph. So, and he's a Nick.
And he's going to be a Nick, and that'll be my nightmare fuel.
You think that he's not staying very long in
He won the championship.
Milwaukee?
That's all he promised.
And
then Steph at 3.
Steph at 3, which don't need to say much about him other than change the way that the NBA works in a lot of different ways. He is a superstar with or without the ball, most times without the ball, by just running, never stopping moving his feet. He's always running off screens, always relocating. He's one of the most unselfish, like all 3 of these guys are super unselfish, but Steph, you could argue in a way, is the most, him or Jokic at least, because just the way that he utilizes his gravity to get people open. Like there's all these videos on YouTube you can go watch about this. There's a lot of compilation videos just of him coming off a screen where both defenders are following him, and Kevon Looney or Draymond Green just slips that screen wide open for a layup at the rim. Like that kind of stuff happens all the time just because of how much defenses are paying attention to Steph. And he knows he's not getting the ball in that scenario, but he's doing that because he knows the value that creates for his team. Like he's so willing to set, like just looking at the comparison between him and the way Russell Westbrook was refusing to play with the Lakers, like how he is this heliocentric. Russ is like this guy that can't play off ball. See, and that's kind of like the difference between Jokic and Luka and these other guys that we were talking about with the heliocentrism. Those other guys, when they have the ball, it's all centered around them. But when they don't have the ball, then they're out of the play. Like nothing's going on. They're just
standing there watching.
And Jokic is not like that at all. He's always like directing, like even if it's not his move on the court, where like he sees like, oh, this would be beneficial if somebody were to like flash middle right here. But he's not in the position to do that. He's communicating to other people, like trying to get them to make those moves. Or I just love those plays where it's Jokic that he passes the ball and then he just takes off sprinting all of a sudden, like, curling down with a cut off ball to get the ball and put it up for a layup. Like he does that kind of stuff a lot. He moves without the ball and he's just very smart with that kind of stuff. That is what Steph does
better than Jokic. Like,
yeah. Absolute highest degree
that we've ever seen in the history of ever, and probably won't see again because it's like a different gear that people try to do it. And they're like, I'm good.
Yeah. So like what I was saying about Russ, he refused to ever set screens for like his teammates. He's like, I'm a star. I don't set screens. That's just this mentality that a lot of stars have. But it's like Steph is like he looks at the game, the way he treats the game is as if he is just merely a role player. Like every player on a team, including him, is just playing their role. And that's just something that's really special. But yeah, so that's our top 3. I feel really good about that top 3. Number 4, this is, I think, where we might start to be different.
Yep.
So my number 4, this is somebody I did argue with myself, maybe putting him at number 3.
Yeah. This person is famously known as being number 2, always. At least my person is.
He's famously known as being number 2.
Never mind. You can just say a person.
Okay. No. My number 4 is Joel Embiid.
No, that's not mine. Mine's Kevin Durant.
Oh, okay. I don't hate that, but my number 4 is Joel Embiid.
This also might be part of my soul can't do it.
Your soul can't do what?
My soul can't acknowledge Joel Embiid as there.
Oh,
I can't do it. And maybe he is for sure. Now that I'm like in like a situation where I have to defend my argument, I just don't want to.
yeah.
But anyway, why do you have Embiid at 4?
Just because I feel like going into the season, it's like just looking at the value that he provides on both ends of the floor. I think that the guys behind him on this list, like a Luka, not necessarily a Durant, but like a Luka or a Tatum, those guys need to really prove themselves. Like in order for them to, I feel like they have to. It's their move. The ball's in their court to show or prove that they have passed Joel Embiid. Because at this point, I don't necessarily feel like they have proven that yet. Just
Both
with the
shown flashes, but not a consistent, constant. Like you got to do it for more than a month. Well, Embiid doesn't even do it for more than a month because he takes a break every 3 weeks. But the concept is there.
Yeah, his two-way dominance, his ability with like just his massive size to be able to be fluid off the dribble and create his own shot in space and dominate in the post. He has his offensive game is at every single level and has continued to get better every single year. We'll see if this is yet another season of him going on an upward trajectory or if this is where he starts to plateau. That's the big question, honestly, for what this list will look like in 6 months. Yeah, I have Joel Embiid at 4. So you have Durant at 4. Can you?
I had Durant at 4.
Yeah,
and a lot of it was just because I think like our list might be the same, except I just had Embiid lower. Maybe, I don't know, but I just was like, can't do it. I had KD up here just because of like when we haven't seen healthy KD and like a fully what I feel like there's nothing holding him back at all healthy KD in like a while, or he's been in like a weird situation. I feel like going into this year, this is one of the first years where he wants to be there. I think his health is getting pretty close to 100%. And then just all the things that Kevin Durant does. Like, he's Kevin Durant. Offensively, defensively. Gets slept on a lot, his defense. Like,
yeah.
I feel like he always gets brought up as like what did Tobias Harris's dad call Tobias Harris? An assassin score.
Assassin score, yeah.
An assassin score. That is what Kevin Durant is, but then also add in like
to the most pure, like 100% degree. Like if you could call anybody an assassin score, it would be either Kevin Durant or Michael Jordan.
Yeah, like that type of thing. And I think his defense gets slept on a lot. So that's why I put KD at 4. I guess I'd be next so I can jump. I had Embiid at 5.
Okay.
Because I wasn't sipping the Kool-Aid so hard. I was really close, but I wasn't chugging the Kool-Aid so hard to put a different player above Embiid. I did write his name as Mbitch. But I had him at 5 for all the reasons you said. And honestly, the reasons I had the 2 guys after him that I do have is because they just haven't done it yet. In terms of like the constant, always weird lulls and things like that. Like Embiid has carried teams.
Yeah, yeah. Did you move him? Did you have him at not 5 at one point?
No.
I thought you had Tatum up here.
I do. Just next.
That's 6.
I said, yeah, I know. Because I said my top, because you said you have 3 guys, and I said I have 4. Where I put a line.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, so he's in this tier as well.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
And honestly, that might be the only, I don't know. We'll see here in a second. Honestly, we could probably go to it. So my top, looking at where our top 5 is looked at, or what was your 5? Because your 5 and my 5 would be different.
Yeah, so your 5 was Embiid. My 5 was Luka.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't have Luka this high.
Really?
Not crazy much lower, but he's the start of the next tier for me. But why Luka above the Tatums and the KDs
Durant
of the world?
I would say it's just the all-around skill, all-around game that he has. It's just like he's that version of Harden. like, that Harden ball, that Trey ball that we've been talking about. Like, I think Luka is the absolute peak or pinnacle version or edition of that we've seen. Like, where he's just, his game is so complete around, like, as far as his game with the ball in his hands, which, is what the Mavs system is put the ball in Luka's hands and everything else works off of that. Is just, it's unmatched. I think that there's not a guy in this league that is as skilled in so many areas as he is, with just the way he can score at every single level, the way that he's just completely, like, it doesn't matter. He's kind of like Jokic in this way, but it's if Jokic had the mentality of a Harden.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Offensively, though.
Yeah. Yeah. If like Jokic was like, oh, I know that I can score every time, so I'm just going to actually try to do that. I'm going to actually try to score every time. That's what Luka is. And it's like the way that the best defenders in the world guarding Luka can look like merely a minor inconvenience to him.
It doesn't matter who.
Yeah.
It could be the best, or like that's actually been a team some things have done where they throw their best defender on Kyrie because they know that they'll get more value like shutting off Kyrie's faucet than slowing down Luka's.
The same thing with people, why people have started to realize that guarding Jokic, the person who guards Jokic one-on-one, is not the most important defensive assignment, because in a way it's like you're getting similar value from like your best,
taking away passing lanes and stuff.
Yeah, like if you have your best defender on Jokic, it's not that far of a drop off as it would be for guarding other players when you put your second best defender on him, because he's just like, it's similar to the way how Dirk was so difficult to guard, because he's so good at making awkward and off balance shots that, like, when you play, what is playing good defense? You're putting them in uncomfortable situations where they have to make
awkward
tough,
and unbalanced shots.
Yeah, exactly. And when a player is really freaking good at that, that's like what their strength is.
That's their calling card.
Yeah, it's like, what can defense even do at that point? That's kind of like the thing with Luka. That's what I've come to realize with just watching him in the playoffs, where I thought that the Clippers, the first time they drew them as their opponent, I was like, oh, well, this is going to be a death gauntlet for Luka. This is so unfortunate that this is who they drew as their first round matchup. But then watching it was like Luka still completely dominated and made that series really like tightly contested. Even though he had like some combination of Paul George and Kawhi Leonard on him that entire series. So
it wasn't rookie.
What that was his second year.
It was just, but I remember,
second
I'll never forget
third.
that part. It was the second year is the one I always remember, because I'm like, this dude's 2 years into the league.
That is the
19 years old, just cooking.
That is the series where he hit this step back. He had Marcus Morris, I think, guarding.
Yes, I know the exact shot.
Yeah, that shot is the moment that my wife and I decided that we were going to name the dog that we were getting after Luka Doncic.
That's the moment you decided and
Yeah, basically. Well, she liked that. We had talked about it. She had liked the name Luka. We were thinking about it already, and then that happened. I was like, "We're naming our dog Luka."
He's a dog.
Yeah. But yeah, so that was a pointless little tangent, but that is the reasons. Those are the reasons why I have Luka Doncic as the number 5 spot. He might be the best scorer in the world, and he might be the best passer in the world. Like, I think I would honestly, if I made a list of both those things, I would put him second on both of those lists. Second best scorer in the world, second best passer in the world.
So then I feel like, because all these guys obviously are like, what they do, they are near the top of what they do well. That's why they're top 10 in the NBA. What would be the weakness of Luka, if you could call it that brought him down to be 5 as opposed to being 3 or 2?
Yeah. I would say the defense part of it. I think out of these top 5 players, he's definitely the weakest on the defensive end, which isn't to say that he doesn't bring any value on that end. because he does read the court very well. He can mirror like offensive players pretty well. He knows he has good awareness and things like that. But he's lacking in a lot of areas on the defensive end with his size and speed. Well, not really his size, but his athleticism and also just his motor, like his effort on that end seems to be really obviously conserved for the offensive possessions. And also I would say the off-ball factor of trying to imagine him paired alongside another star is kind of hard to imagine at this point, because he would have to play very differently than he already does, unless that star, his co-star, is somebody like an Anthony Davis or a Giannis, even.
Where what he does just kind of puzzle pieces there.
Exactly. But yeah, I think what edges Embiid over him is the two-way factor.
Does it make sense?
Yeah. So then is it me for 6?
Yep, you're first for 6.
Okay. So my 6th player on here.
I guess top 5 is a good number to give a recap where we're at. We both agreed on Jokic.
Yep.
Both agreed on Giannis. And both agreed on Steph. At 4, Logan went Embiid, and I went KD. At 5, I went Embiid, and Logan went Luka.
Mm-hmm.
So Logan has not used KD, and I have not had Luka on my top. Those are the only people that we have that are different thus far through 5. But we've still got 5 more, because that's how top 10 works. So what is your 6th, Logan?
Yeah. So my 6th, so this is another drop off for me a little bit. So like I said before, the top tier I'd say is Jokic and Giannis. Second tier is Steph, Embiid, Luka. And then this next tier I have Durant at 6. And this is one where I could go either way. Like, there's definitely some people behind Durant that I could argue myself into putting over Durant. But I feel like I feel most comfortable with him sitting here at the 6th spot currently, just because I feel like there's some players behind him that maybe could have some more room to go in order to fully, overtake him on this list. And so, yeah, I think that's why I'm putting Kevin Durant, who's arguably the greatest, like the surest 2 points, like the best, just get a bucket guy in the history of the league. And like you were mentioning before, his two-way factor, very switchable, provides a lot of rim protection. What his kryptonite is his slender frame, which I shouldn't say is his kryptonite, because that's part of what makes him so good in other areas as well, is how slender he is in some ways. But the downside of that is what we saw in the Nuggets and Suns series, the way that he was able to kind of just be neutralized in a way. He still averaged probably like 25 points a game that series, but
he had a couple really bad games.
Yeah, and his efficiency was not anywhere close to where we usually see Durant. And a huge reason, like almost 100%, like you were saying, maybe there was something to do with his health, but I'd say a majority of the reason of why he was neutralized the way he was because of the defensive job that Aaron Gordon was playing on him. With, Aaron Gordon, very stocky, sturdy for being 6'8", but he just gets under him every time. Like Durant, his go-to possession is mid-range post-up. So the game plan was, whenever he's trying to get position, posting up in the mid-range, AG is just pushing him off of his spot as far as possible. So instead of Durant catching the ball like 7 feet away from the basket, when AG is guarding him, he's catching it more like 14 or 15 feet away from the basket. And that just brings down his efficiency a lot, because he's catching the ball farther away. And he's also getting a lot more tired, having to fight for position and stuff like that. So that was, I think that's like kind of where I feel like he needs to show that he has a great counter for that, because so far in his career, we've not seen, when he is presented with that kind of defensive matchup, we have not seen him overcome that, other than kind of against LeBron in the finals. But, so a lot of people don't want to count those because he had such the drastically better team with the Warriors. But I would say there are some people that would say that Durant outplayed LeBron in at least one of those final series.
I think one could argue that he did in both. Directly one-on-one.
Yeah.
Obviously,
maybe you
KD
could argue. I would say 18, I think I would still lean LeBron. I think 2018, LeBron had one of the best finals games ever played.
Oh, yeah.
But I would say I would lean KD for sure in 17. So they might have split that one and one. But yeah, so that's my number 6. Who's your number 6?
I have on my list, number 6 this is where I was sipping the Kool-Aid, and I put Jason Tatum at 6. Because have you seen this recently? It's been places on Twitter, and maybe it's just Celtics Twitter, but like there's an actual debate between Luka and Tatum for the best player under 25.
What do you mean actual debate?
Like people are like discussing rather aggressively whether they'd have Tatum or Luka as the top player under 25.
I think in my book, it's clearly Luka, but I wouldn't say that somebody is insane or knows nothing about basketball for picking Tatum. I wouldn't say that. That's for sure.
Because I took Tatum because I also think that I overvalue defensive liability more than I should.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I've got Tatum at 6. Luka's my 7. Right. So, I mean, it seems weird that, but like, again, the order was a little bit off in terms of like, but I had like my 3 and then 4 through 7 was like a very much order was rough. Like it took me a while to figure out and nail down the order. I did it yesterday, forgot to save it. So this might have even been different than what I wrote down yesterday for all I know. But it's a very loose, like, these guys are top 10 guys, but it's hard to, like, put pins on where they are. So I have Tatum at 6 for all the things that Jason Tatum does well. I think he's grown a lot as a leader on the court type of thing. He's done a lot more on that front, as well as, obviously, offensively, he took a step up efficiency-wise. And then also defensively, I think, is the bigger thing.
Yeah.
He's done a lot in the past couple years to keep his energy on offense, like still put all that in, but still bring a lot to the table where one could argue he was our best defensive player in terms of what he was doing, like versatility and switchability. Switchability is the wrong word because that's literally what Marcus Smart does. But like the year Marcus Smart won Defensive Player of the Year, I would have argued that he could do all the things he wanted to do because Tatum could just kind of like assist with a side and just be there.
Yeah. I mean, Tatum I would say, is kind of the definition of switchability in the NBA right now as well, though. Both of them are extremely switchable.
So the defensive thing is where I gave the nod above Luka, but as you said, Luka is this is going to go down as a very fun era of basketball.
Yeah.
And I feel like, honestly, the last 3 names we've talked about are big reasons why it will be. Honestly, moving forward, it'll just be a ton of fun. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree. And that's who I have as my number 7 is Jason Tatum. So we both have the same top 7 here. I would argue, at least from my perspective, I feel better about Tatum's defense than I do his offense. Like, honestly,
yes.
It's his offense that is holding me back a little bit with Durant and, even Luka. Like putting him over those guys, because just the consistency, like him being able, like me trusting him as like a number 1 on a team in a playoff situation.
And I think at the end of the year, we will have our answer, good or bad, whether consistency is coming to the table or not. Because I think that he looked a lot more consistent last year. Because like going into last year, I think I sent a meme into the group chat with you, me, and Anthony, our buddy Anthony, Sixers fan. That it was like a calendar, and it was like in the off season it just exited out, but at the beginning of the year it was like, oh my goodness, this is Michael Jordan. And then someone was like, should we trade him, or is this trading too low, after his like Michael Jordan start of the season? And then at the end he's like, oh my goodness, he's back, because he just would go through this lull in the middle of the season that like irritated me to no end. And I didn't know what caused it or what it was. This year, the lull, unless you were looking for it, didn't really exist. It did, but it wasn't to the same extent of where you're like, like I think he ended up averaging just shy of 30 a game, I think.
I think it might have been even over 30.
No, he might have been the first Celtic ever to have 30 a game. 30.1 a game. So he just got over 30 a game.
Which is incredible.
No, that's huge. No, that's not anything to take away from it all.
Yeah.
But the consistency in the lull was much lesser because like there was where he was averaging 35 for like a month, and then he would go through this 20 points a game 3 weeks, and I'm like, and I'm not. He's a good basketball player. 20 points a game is elite. But when he got like the volume and what the team needed from him,
with the volume that he's doing it at is not very elite.
It was not insane. But then there would be the flip side. So I get the consistency thing. I think we will know this year definitively if he is going to be this like consistent offensive thing.
Yeah.
Because he's going to have, I think with Kristaps, and I feel like also with like how the Celtics are going to have to run the offense, he will like, it'll be very apparent. It'll show bad. They can't hide him being a little bit off for a while. So it'll be interesting to see.
Agreed. And so my number 8.
And this is where things might get, for me, this is where I was like, I realized when I was looking, I forgot to write down a name. So I also have 14 names for my whole top 10.
Oh. Yes. I feel like it's hard to say that any of these 14 guys are not top 10 guys. You know what I mean?
Yes. So this is where it gets hard for me with starting at 8 because I could argue myself that my last honorable mention could be number 8. For me, at least. This is where things got rough. I would
sort of agree. Yeah, I would sort of agree.
If you were to look at me in the eyes and say, I guess this... I don't know how we want to. You can just give your 8. We'll go from there.
Yeah, I think that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, there are 6 players that I could easily put here at number 8 for me. But the guy I did, or at least right now, that I feel the best about putting here. Oh, man, I don't want to say a name and then not put him because I'm just trying to have this conversation with myself right now about what I should value more about whether or not, okay, I'll just hint at it.
Just
one person that I'm thinking about is somebody,
injury.
Yes, who barely plays, barely sees the court at all.
And I felt like I had to put this person in the top 10, so I did, but I didn't feel good about it. I'll say the name because Kawhi Leonard. If Kawhi Leonard's healthy, he is 8 or maybe higher. But not knowing what he's doing or what doctor he's talking to or if he's his own doctor or what is going on makes putting Kawhi Leonard high super difficult. Because I was like, I have to put Kawhi in the top 10.
Especially after what he did in the playoffs this year where for how long did he even play? 2 games? Not even. But he looked like possibly the best player in the world.
Of ever. Like, out of every human being to ever breathe oxygen and play basketball, for those 2 games, I would have argued it might be Kawhi Leonard. Like, he looked insane. But it was 2 games. And I was like...
Yeah.
Oh, man.
It's like he came back just to remind everybody that, yes, he still is at this level. And then all of a sudden he's like, oh, but I'm injured again. Now I'm gone. Like, it's so hard to rank somebody like this.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to put him at 8 yet.
Okay.
The person I am going to put at 8 is somebody who we saw play every game in the playoffs last year and was a complete animal, almost like he outplayed somebody who's above him on this list as his own teammate. Sorry, for those watching on video, my dog is getting very needy, and just forced herself up onto my lap. But so the person I'm putting at number 8 is Devin Booker. And so, yeah, his teammate Kevin Durant in that Nuggets series, I think Booker was the clear best player on the Suns that series, at least.
Yep.
Without question. And that's why I think that there are definitely some people, some NBA writers, putting Booker over Durant on lists like this for that reason. And I can't necessarily blame them because I watched the same thing that they watched that is informing that decision. But I still lean that I think that I'm going to give Booker a little bit more root. Like I'm saying that there might, yeah, exactly. He has a little bit more to prove for me still to show that like I want to see Kevin Durant with, a full offseason heading into a stint with the Suns, and also in a matchup where he's not necessarily playing against that specific defensive matchup that is very, very favorable for the other team and stopping him. So yeah, that's why I put Devin Booker here at number 8. But he's, as far as like doing some Michael Jordan impressions or Kobe Bryant impressions, Kawhi is one guy that we just brought up, but Booker is definitely doing that as well, being just the king of the mid-range right now. Yeah, who do you have at 8?
Mine was I had 2 injuries that I'm like, if they're healthy, I have to put them in my top 10. But I couldn't. My brain couldn't do it. So we've talked about Kawhi and gave him his flowers. So I'm just going to move him down to my honorable mentions from where he was at. I'm not going to say where he was, but I was like, the injuries, they took control of me. Yeah. And at 8, I had Anthony Davis because I'm like, if 80's healthy, who else do I want?
Yeah.
Like, no, a healthy, if I get 82 games out of AD, at the end of the year, we remake this list, which could be a good video idea. He's 2, maybe.
Yeah, I agree.
Like,
he could be.
And honestly, if we do an end of the year, if Jokic like sits out like 20-something games and looks, if AD plays 82, he's 1. Like he has that ceiling, that level of potential. But I was like, the injuries, and I hate injuries. I hate what ifs in sports. It's dumb. Maybe Brandon Roy is the best Blazer to ever live, but we don't know because he got hurt. So I have AD at my 8. Okay. And it's because everything he does when he's healthy is he's just a beefy, just scorer at will inside the paint.
I'm going to say best defensive player in the NBA.
When healthy. And not nursing some sort of weird groin, knee, ankle, anything injury. He is just a terror.
For sure.
I think the thing that makes him so, like, he's got the athleticism, but like his mental capacity on when to jump to time the blocks is what's insane.
I agree. His feel on the defensive end is it's like a natural gift that he has, just the all-time best like defensive instincts. And he's able to just get to shots that nobody else is able to get to with having his both feet in the paint and just getting out and somehow getting a finger on a jump shot. That he's like, he does that more than anybody I've ever seen.
It's yeah. So I have AD at 8 because I felt like I can't make the list and not have AD in the top 10. So I guess I'll go to 9. This is where I had Kawhi at because I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
But the injury thing, and I said I gave Kawhi the flowers. Going into game 1, I don't know if Kawhi is going to be playing. So I'm going to pretend he's not. And I am going to put the person that I would have probably put there. And that is going to be Devin Booker. Because I had the same thing where I was like, I have KD really high. But the last time I watched KD play basketball, he wasn't the best player on his own team.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Book was my first honorable mention written down because I tried to kind of do those in a rough order of like how close I was to moving and switching. And you already also gave Devin Booker his you hit the reasons on the nose. So my 8, Anthony Davis, my 9,
Devin Booker.
was written down as Kawhi, but the injuries, I got to get that out because I almost wanted to be like, can we just like pretend everyone's healthy permanently?
Yeah.
Just for this list because
I thought about that too.
That just made it really difficult, but it's part of the real world. It's how it goes. So yeah. What is your number 9? 9.
Yep. My 9 is the same as your 8. So that is Anthony Davis. So we have the same 8-9 just flipped around. And the reason I have him at 9, I guess, instead of 8 is, partly to do with like the healthiness factor that you were talking about. But even beyond that, just the thing that's really wavy and like shaky with him has always been just his motor or his like
his love of basketball.
Yeah, you can tell when it's a game that's like, oh, this is going to be like Pantheon AD, like potentially the best power forward of all time over Tim Duncan AD. Like he gets into that zone, it seems like just with a simple flick of a switch, like when he just decides to. That's the scary thing. But there's lots of games where it seems like he's like, I just had a good game last game. I don't need to have a good game this game.
Which is also, I think, all of like the all-time greats are almost always regarded as not very nice people.
Yeah.
Because they're always the kill switch on. Mm-hmm. They don't have an on-off. They're just like, I am here to murder everyone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Anthony Honestly, Davis, outside of LeBron, but on the court, LeBron does the switch thing, but he almost always has it on and then somehow extra on.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is about Anthony Davis.
Anthony Davis, I feel like he just gets this. He has this
complacency.
Complacency, yeah, that's a great word for it. And I think that it's like he gets into that kill switch mode once he has enough external motivation to get him there. Because it seems like it's like when those moments come is like after everybody's talking bad about him or questioning him, doubting him. Charles Barkley's making fun of him on TNT, stuff like that. And then all of a sudden it's like AD is back. And then right after that, he's, when you see him again, he's like, oh, I feel good. I'm back on top. People are saying I'm good again. And he's just not as good anymore. It just kind of this back and forth that is forever frustrating to, kind of root for or cheer on or just kind of watch from a outside perspective. But that is who I have at number 9. And my number 10 is somebody that I could pretty easily flip around with him, but that is his own teammate, LeBron James, who I have at 10. It can definitely still be the best player on his team, but like we just got done saying, if we're talking like all of these guys at their very best, AD is like top 5 on this list for sure for me.
When I said 2, I wasn't trying to be like over dramatic. Like I was dead serious that a healthy, perfect AD is easily top 5.
Mm-hmm.
In the top tier of players on a very, very, very short list.
Yeah. So like, I think what both of like the Lakers players, all of their best ceilings for what they can be this season, AD is higher than LeBron for me in my book, but it's very wishy-washy on which one will actually be the higher level,
betting on consistency, it's probably going to be LeBron.
Yeah.
But age is also a thing that is never lost.
Mm-hmm.
But I also wonder if we're like in this weird middle ground of medical advancements where like, what is the new NBA guys used to be done at 35 was like a normal-ish.
Oh yeah.
You're starting to really decline in play. Is that 40 now?
I think I would say right now, like what 35 was in 2010, I'll say that's like the new 37 or 38. So in 10 years or 15 years almost, it's moved a couple 2-3 years.
Yeah.
Which is pretty big in that short amount of time.
Mm-hmm. To jump like that. So that's the only thing that like LeBron is consistent is one of the best things to probably put on the resume is of like when he shows up, it's very rarely like, oh, that was a really off LeBron night. That doesn't really happen all that often. So
yeah, I mean, it's kind of like AD with like you can tell that he can still flip that switch to get into his zone, but it's like he can't do it as often anymore because with his age, he needs time to recover. I feel like that's the same case with a lot of aging athletes. Like when GOATs are not in their prime anymore, the main thing that you see leaving is their consistency, is like their ability to have it all the time, because like their recovery,
night out.
Yep. Yeah, their recovery time is what's like the main thing that's really gone. So like we saw with his back up against the wall in Game 4 against the Nuggets in the Western Conference Finals, he came out and had a 30-point first half, and then he ended the game with like 36. You know, like he came out in the second half and was like, he just did not have it anymore. He left the game, went back into the tunnel before the first half was even over. There was like 15 seconds left on the clock in the first half, and he was already leaving, going down the tunnel to go take a nap or something. But yeah, so that's just kind of how I feel like that's what's limiting him at this point, is just that aging factor. Yeah, where are we at now? Is it your 10?
It's my 10. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
We've been watching a lot of him. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at number 10.
Yeah, are you just putting him in here just to put him in here, or do you believe this?
Okay, and this is where it got a little tough, because at the end of the year, I genuinely believe this is where it will be.
Yeah,
he will be recognized as that.
I agree.
But I was like, okay, happen. Going in right now, the other names I have written down in my honorable mentions: Kawhi.
Yep.
Because I switched booking. So injuries for Kawhi.
Mm-hmm.
Then I've got Dame.
Yep.
Jimmy.
Yep.
And LeBron.
Yeah.
Because I didn't put LeBron in my top 10.
Yep.
So those were my 4 honorable mentions.
We have the same top 14.
Okay. So yeah. But then my thing was like, okay. And I was like, this is why it's so hard, because like Shai was the one that I was like, okay, I haven't seen it, so it was the hardest for me to argue going crazy high.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, at 10, I genuinely feel like he is the 10th best player, or like a top 10 level player in the NBA.
I have him at 14, just to be clear. I don't disagree that there's no way he's number 10.
And this is maybe more at the end of the year, but I'm sticking to my guns because that's all I do.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing is like, if you take Shai away from this Thunder team, how bad are they?
Yeah, that very, very bad. The worst team in the NBA.
But you put him there, and they're expected to probably be
kind of like middle of, like a average NBA team. Honestly, they went from the absolute worst team to like,
they're going to make the play-in at the minimum type of team in a crazy good West because of Shai.
Mm-hmm. And when I say average, that's like a conservative estimation. Like they are definitely a candidate of a team that is going to completely surprise everybody this year. Like is going to be like what Memphis was 2 years ago.
There's a world they get Chet back, and like it'll be a close race because it's the West. But they're like, why is OKC a 3 seed? This is kind of wild. And it'll be, and not exclusively because of Shai, but I'm going to give him 60 to 75%. 60 to 70% of the credit alone. And so that's why I said he's top 10. At the end of the year, maybe my list will look worse. Maybe it'll look better. I don't know. But I just felt like needed to give my boy Shai some love.
Yeah, I agree. And somebody else that I could see vault themselves up into this top 10 after this year is Anthony Edwards.
Yes. I did not feel good enough to do it yet because his like not explosion, but what Ant did in the playoffs is like, if he does what he did in the playoffs for like an actual whole season, it'll be hard to deny him a conversation of being a top 10 guy. Because like Ant was him all year, but it was the playoffs where he was like, there was like, I think Bruce Brown said our hardest series was the T-Wolves series.
There's a lot of Nuggets fans that have said that the Wolves was the hardest series that we faced.
And it was a lot of it was because of Ant.
Yeah.
And Cat.
And Gobert. I would put Gobert over Cat for why it was hard. Gobert was an animal on the defensive end. People will forget that until the end of time, but Nuggets fans will remember that Gobert was dominant on the defensive end.
Was a terror.
And then Ant was like, Ant scared, like, I'll say this, Ant scared me. He struck more fear.
LeBron.
He struck more fear into my heart than any person we ever went against, like, as a Nuggets fan that I've ever gone against.
In a playoff series.
Yeah.
You were like, Ant's got the ball.
Other than maybe 2020 LeBron, I guess, or AD in 2020.
2020 AD was really scary.
Yeah, but as far as this playoff run in 2023,
it was definitely Ant.
Is Ant, because like the person I would put second on that list would be Booker, because of how like Booker was probably at a level that Ant wasn't in terms of actual production game after game. But the thing with Booker was like he was getting shots that for the most part I was not uncomfortable with. Like I was like, I feel like we're playing him pretty well. And
if he goes in, he's just doing it.
He's just doing it. Yeah. But so I'm like, there's no way he can keep doing that.
Yeah.
With Ant, it was like, we can't stop him. It's like he's too
fast.
Yeah. The way they were abused, like that was the only series this entire playoff run where Jokic looked at it was in 5, but
5.
It's where Jokic actually looked like a liability on the defensive end. This was the only series that it looked like that. And the reason why is because they kept putting him in the pick and roll with Anthony Edwards, and he was, dropping against Edwards, and Edwards was just like full head of steam right at him at the rim every time. And it like, we could not stop it. There's nothing we could do to stop Anthony Edwards just coming off the screen and going to the rim.
No, my buddy, shout out to my buddy Derek, who's a T-Wolves fan. He was like, that series is going. He said, that's the series that I'm going to cry myself to sleep about when Ant goes and plays somewhere else.
Yeah.
It was like something along those lines of like, that'll be the series that I'll be like, it's like that Wolverine holding a picture of like reminiscing. It'll be that series.
Yeah. I texted those during that series. It was after the game that they won, I think, or maybe I don't remember exactly what.
And that's the other thing is
that I texted you guys, you and Anthony, that, and I don't know if I 100% believe this anymore, but it's very close. I said that I genuinely would trade both Jamal and MPJ straight up for Anthony Edwards. I know there's a lot of Nuggets fans that would get mad at that because of how, high a lot of people hold Jamal now after this playoff run, but it's close, honestly, for me. But I would still lean on keeping Jamal and Porter just because it's both of them, and just the chemistry and synergy that Jamal and Jokic have formed over almost 8 years together. I don't want to just give that away all of a sudden. You know what I mean?
But yeah, so I was looking. You won game 1.
Yeah, we lost game 3, right?
29
or 4.
But then it was an 8-point win in game 2. A 9-point win in game 3, your loss in game 4.
Game 4, yeah.
And then you only beat them by 3 in game 5.
Yeah, one of those games was to overtime. Was that the game we lost? Game 4?
I think it was game 3. No, you won the overtime game, I thought.
Oh, maybe. I don't. I just remember overtime happening one of those games.
It's not really showing me very well which one went to overtime. I'm checking.
Yeah. But Edwards had like a 45-point game, one of them, didn't he?
Yes. That was in game. He had 41 in game 2, 36 in game 3. And it was only showing me the highest score of the game. It's not showing me.
Oh. Yeah.
Overtime was your loss, was your overtime.
Okay. That's what I thought.
Did 2 of them go to overtime or just 1?
They might have gone 2. But I just remember at least one game going to overtime, and I thought it was the loss.
It was the loss, yeah. To avoid the sweep. Anyway, I feel like that was good. Our top 10 lists. Oh, honorable mentions. I almost buried I guess I talked about my.
Yeah, you already kind of mentioned yours. Mine are the same, but I'll say them also. Kawhi Leonard is who I have at 11. Number 12, I have Dame. Number 13, I have Jimmy. Number 14, I have SGA. And if I had to put a 15, I think I would put Anthony Edwards. So yeah, that'll make it a nice, clean top 15.
Donovan Mitchell?
It's close. He's up there. The way he disappeared in the playoffs was 2 years in a row now. Was not great.
Who else would be up there? Honestly, Jamal's probably up there.
He could be. I think that he has
Ja, if he doesn't have a
Ja for sure.
gun fetish.
Yeah, Ja for sure. Brandon Ingram.
James Harden.
Yeah, I think he could still be up there.
I feel like we're like, is there any bigs that we missed? I feel like those guys got forgotten.
Like bigs. Position bigs.
Forwards, like power forwards, centers.
The only guys that come to mind, Bam and Sabonis.
And I don't know if they're that.
No, I wouldn't mention them so far. I would mention Fox before I'd mention Sabonis. Personally.
Lou Dort. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a good list that we put together. I don't see too many issues that people can have with it other than SGA. But what you just opened up about Jamal is something that we can close on. I think that Jamal it's a weird with him. Like, I think he's the first player in NBA history that I've experienced, at least, that like the narrative around him, or like the way that I'm looking at him is like, in order for me to properly rank him, I need to see him do it in the regular season. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's nobody ever that you would say that about.
How much worse does Jamal Murray get if Jokic isn't his teammate?
How much worse does he get?
How much worse is Jamal if like Jokic isn't his teammate?
I have no idea. Like, it's so hard to have a grasp on who.
Yeah, that.
But I think that it's quite a bit lower.
Also, there is another player like that in the history of sports. Julian Edelman.
Oh.
Probably won't make the Hall of Fame because of his regular season.
Rondo is another one also I just thought of.
Playoff Rondo's his own meme.
Yeah.
We've got like a chat somewhere and it has like merch, and one of them is Playoff Rondo is my spirit animal.
I totally forgot about that. Is that on our
Depth
Discord?
is depth and depth is good.
Yeah, I remember that one. But yeah, Jamal is just it's wild that that's what I would say about him. But yeah, I need to see him
do it
in a regular season where he has a full regular season looking like that guy that he has looked like the past two playoffs that he's played in, which was, for those who don't know, the bubble playoffs and then this one, which is wild.
Now that's the gap between his two playoffs.
Yeah, he didn't play in 21 or 22.
Because he got hurt right before the 21.
Yep, in April 8th.
And so then that knocked him out for the playoffs. In the 2022 season, they just didn't have him come back.
Yeah, he was out all the way through. I think that it was, they were being sort of conservative with it, but
worked out for him.
Worked out, yeah, for sure.
They got a banner.
Mm-hmm. That I will be forever grateful for. And he was a absolute ginormous part of that. So, yeah, that was the episode. Thank you guys for listening. Please rate the show on Spotify if you're listening there. Please like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Do all the stuff. Go to the Patreon. Sign up for that if you feel kind.
If you do, you get vlogs from me training for my marathon.
Yes, and also early access to new episodes and shout outs at the end of episodes if you join that tier. There's two tiers, $5 and $20. So if you feel like supporting the show, that's the best way. Second best way, I would say, is the Buy Me a Coffee, which all the links of all this stuff should be in the episode description as well as the show description, wherever you're watching this or listening to this. And so that buymeacoffee.com/hoop theory is where you can make a one-time donation to the show. So do that if you feel like it, if you want to.
And recipe of the day is creamy Tuscan chicken.
Yes. Did we talk about that on air, or was that before the episode started?
Oh, I think it was before.
Yeah, I think it was before. But
creamy Tuscan chicken, recipe of the day.
Yeah, so thank you guys for listening. We will talk to you guys in the next episode.
Peace.